Where is your scar and how did you get it? I have a scar on my chin from falling. A scar on the bridge of my nose from having tables fall on me. Scar on my right pointer finger from a Swiss Army knife. Scar on left middle finger from pitting a avocado. Scar on my left pointer finger from a box knife. Self-inflicted scars on my lower arms, from when I was a teen. Scars on my upper arm from running into a briar bush on a four-wheeler. Scar on my lower abdomen from a C-section. Scar on my breast from a surgery. Scar on my eyebrow from my eyebrow ring being ripped out. Scar on my ear from my earring being rejected. I think that's about it. Scars, plural. A surgery scar on my interior, left ankle after a leg break playing soccer. Scarring on my outer right calf, from soccer cleats raking my leg and tearing flesh during a soccer game. Stitch scarring on my lip that runs into the interior of my cheek after being struck on the side of the face by a fiberglass racket. Small scar on my chest from being stabbed by an ice pick. Think of a screwdriver, not the climbing type. Non-progressive pulmonary fibrosis from an untreated kidney infection. Pyelonephritis. Scar on my left butt cheek from a ricocheted bullet. I have one on my nose that's incredibly faint now, but still present. I got it while operating a forklift. There was a stanchion sticking out further than it should have been and it hit me in the face as I was driving by. My perception was a bit skewed, so I didn't realize how far out it was sticking until it hit me smack dab in the face. I'm just happy it was my nose and not my eye. I was fine afterwards. I just had a cut and slight bruising that went away after a couple of days. The worst part about it was people thinking I'd gotten punched in the nose. 7th grade I folded a piece of felt and cut the tip of my left index finger almost all the way off. My teacher wrapped it in Kleenex, which stuck to the wound. The secretary came into the nurse's office all flustered. "We called your mom, she's on her way." About 20 minutes later a lady I've never seen came rushing in and I looked at her and said, "That's not my mom," and passed out. They called the wrong mom and told her that her daughter cut the top of her finger off. Almost 30 years later, still when it gets really cold I can't feel the tip of my finger. My mom left me in the car alone once. I wanted to turn on the radio, but didn't know how, so I pressed a random button and it suddenly came loose. I couldn't get it back in, so I panicked, because I didn't want to get in trouble for breaking the radio. I tried pushing in the bulge on the bottom of the button, to make it fit back into its spot. My parents didn't smoke, so I had no idea what a cigarette lighter was. My mom said when I came running, all she could smell was burned meat. Let's just say my thumb's print is a little more unique than most. I have this patch on one of my eyebrows with no hair on it. I remember it being an insecurity for me when I was younger. When I was 10, I asked my mom about it and she told me when I was 2 I was sitting on a long chair near a pool. My mom and I lived in an apartment building around that time with a pool. My mom saw me being good and just laying on the long chair, so she trusted me enough so that she could get up and go to the bathroom. She told me when she got back, my whole face was bleeding. I think that last part might have been a whole exaggeration. Left bomb, running across the street into traffic and then decided last minute I wouldn't make it, so turned back then slipped because it rained and the road was wet. Braced my fall but my watch slid down and I cut myself on the strap. Left thumb, knife was dull and bounced off a lemon on the downstroke and bounced up and then cut my thumb. Left index finger, slicing with a serrated knife and lifted it a little too high and on the downstroke sliced my finger pretty good. 15 years in a kitchen and only 2 battle wounds ain't bad, I think. I have too many to count. The biggest one is on the outside of my left thigh. I got blackout drunk freshman year of college and slept against a radiator. The dorm room was old and cold, so the bed was pushed up to the radiator for warmth. There were also 3 other people crammed in the single bed. I woke up smelling charred flesh and then realized, oh, that's me. Had to go have them first scrub daily at the infirmary to prevent infection and constrictive scarring. It worked. It mainly looks like a giant weird bruise. My collarbone. Happened when I was 2 or 3, but I have no memory of it. You remember those old metal slides? Either I tried climbing up or went sliding, head down, and part of the metal on the slide was broken, not the right word I guess, and twisted, and I guess I got cut pretty badly and the doctor didn't do a very good job with the stitches apparently. Makes me think I can add an additional line to once in a lifetime. You might ask yourself, why did my mother let me slide down a damaged slide? Ah, the 70s. I have surgical scars on my knees and ankle, because I am a klutz and fall down a lot. I have 2 long scars on my back, surgical, after falling down a flight of stairs. I have 2 foolish ones on my thumbs. Not sure how old I was, but was making melted wax into a sculpture. holding a pipe plate full of melted wax, then pushing it into a sink full of cold water. However, I put on my winter gloves, because it stung. The wax melted my gloves to both thumbs, which once ripped off by my sister took skin with it, man shrugging. One on my right elbow is just about faded, but when I used to show it to people it got quite a few oof looks. When I was 16, I was visiting the Science Museum and tried spinning a massive interactive wheel on a display as fast as I could. It was directly in the corner of the room and the plastic covering from the adjacent display was not flush with the wall, it was slightly poking out. Caught the corner just right and the covering went crashing to the floor while my elbow had a fresh cut all the way across. I have a scar that looks like a brown spot on the point of my right hip bone. Last year while I was at the beach, on a day where the waves were particularly big, I tried to body surf on the waves. I'm usually able to get slightly in front of the wave, flatten my body out, and just be pushed by it, but somehow I instead got perfectly on top of the wave. So when the wave crashed, I was thrown flat and hard on the ground, and my right hip took most of the blow. So it was basically a really serious sand burn. 3/4 scar on my cheek from a dog bite to the face. Barely visible scar on my chin from a boat tie down to the face. Round scar on my right index fingertip from one of those mandolin slicer things chopping the tip of my finger. 1-2 scar on the back of my left index finger from a pocket knife. 2 scar on my right knee from a fence. Not in that order. Those are all from my childhood. Also have a 1-2 scar on my right thumb from an RC airplane prop that happened a month ago. I've got one on my forehead from running around a trailer at my grandpa's work when I was little and falling on the edge of it. One on my hand from accidentally stabbing myself when I was trying to open something. I've got a ton on my thighs from cutting, 1 blob on my arm from burning, 1 on my knee from falling when I was a kid, and 1 on the bottom of my foot from stepping on a stingray. Shuffle your feet when you go in the ocean. PPL, don't take steps. I don't really have any scars with a fun or interesting story, but I do have a long one on my calf. I was chasing my dog, who was 15 at the time, into the woods after she wrangled herself free of the leash. That's a hound for you right there. I fell on some old fencing and sliced myself right nicely. She turned around, still baying, and stood guard over me until my mother ran out the door. That damn artifact of a beagle then got a treat for protecting me and my back. When I was in university, I used to sleep in a twin bed until the landlord said the apartment was on sale and that the bed was leaving. In an empty room, the bed was in pieces for months without being purchased until I once was drunk AF and tried to arrange the twin bed again. I'm not sure how it happened, but the bed's basement fell upon me and made a big wound that I'm not sure how it didn't kill me because it goes all across my back. Nobody walks away unscathed from a knife fight. It's on my neck. This happened just 2 months back. For a couple weeks I had to walk around with a highly visible, sometimes blood-soaked dressing. The only entertainment I got out of it was telling people I got into a knife fight. Then I had to admit that actually I tripped in a shed and fell on a sharp-holed piece of farm machinery, and thank goodness I'm up to date on my tetanus vaccination. On my right hip. I was on a walk with my family and I was holding the dog's leash. I had the leash wrapped around my wrist so it wouldn't slip out of my hands if he started pulling. My brother started running down the street and my dog decided to follow him. He was dragging me down the street and I was in so much pain I can't even remember if he stopped because he realized I was being dragged or if I was finally able to let go of the leash. I have a couple of scars on my lower abdomen, one each to the left and right of my uterus, and one right on top of my pelvic bone. Had robotic-assisted laparoscopic surgery to remove fibroids 2 years ago. It's cool to think that robots helped do my surgery, and my surgeon must have been great at playing video games since she was able to cut and nip those things out of me using those long and skinny cutters through tiny holes in my skin. I have a scar on my right arm from my dog Basco who passed 2 years ago. I was a kid when this happened though it was late at night and I was walking back to my room and I saw him laying down, so I bent down to pet him and he bit me on the arm since I think I caught him off guard. He bit my arm and I was so lucky to have a hoodie on, but at least now I have something to always remind me of him. RIP Basco, 2011-2021. Have a cool one but on a weird placement. I have a fine line scar that cuts through my right wrist, but here's how I got him. Worked at an aquarium, had to feed the Magellanic penguins every morning. We had a particularly hungry boy called Ribs. One day I was trying to keep Ribs away from the food, as he had eaten his share already. I get distracted for 2 seconds and Ribs just bites my wrist with all his little penguin mites. 6 or so all over torso and 1 on my left heel, for some reason from my liver transplant. 15 more both wrists, one knee, my chin, knuckles of all fingers. From a rather nasty fall on my bike. I split my eyebrow to my skull and I ran into a cabinet corner as a kid. I've got a scar just above my hairline from an electric toothbrush. Got a big crankbait hook into my left thumb down to the bend. Had to be cut out. I have a scar under my eyebrow because I slipped and fell on some rocks when I was like 4. There were some street dogs chasing me in this tiny Italian village where I was visiting family. Then there's a faint one on my wrist when I burnt myself with an iron as a kid. I've got many scars, though thankfully most are starting to heal. They can sometimes be a source of major insecurity, but I'm trying to love them. Right between my eyes, and it's actually 2 scars on top of each other because I have very bad luck. First one was from being whacked in the face by a whitewater rafting partner, the other was from an all-in-one computer falling off a rolling desk straight into the bridge of my glasses, and the glasses taking out a chunk of my nose right on top of the other scar. Now it's just a little white square under my glasses. I have some long slashes horizontal on my chest from when I was drunk trying to carry a cat to my bed and I tripped and fell on a fan and he scratched the fuck out of me. Some on my forearm too. It's unfortunate but they look kinda cool. Like character creator scars option in a video game. Also some pretty gnarly ones on my leg after having 2 metal plates and 15 screws in my leg shattered being hit by a car.